Hello. I'm pleased that today I'm here in Domžale with James Eaton, non-duality teacher, and we'll have a short, spontaneous talk about non-duality. So, James, welcome. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much.
Maybe on the beginning, just this broad question: what brought you to non-duality, and what actually is non-duality?
Well, that's a great question. Well, my experience is what I find with people I speak to is quite common in that there's always been a sense of longing for something more in life. No matter what successes I may have achieved, or relationships, money, power, sex, whatever you want to call it, whatever we seem to have in life, somehow, ultimately, it's never enough. And so maybe we try and convince ourselves that we just haven't found the right partner, or the right career, or the right house, or the right car, or whatever it is, and then we go and try and get more of that, and ultimately see that that doesn't work either. There's still that sense of lack. So this was my experience, and then that seeking then turned into a more spiritual kind of direction. So then I got interested in different meditation paths, or different things, lots of different things. I won't go into a big list, but I started to see that it was the same thing there as well. There was still this feeling of something missing. Maybe I'd have some successes, with meditation or something. For a while it was okay, but ultimately it would always come back. This sense that there's more, there's something more to life. And so I basically came to the point where I became completely disillusioned. I couldn't find this answer that I was looking for. In a way, I totally failed. And it was in that kind of sort of giving up, in a way, that I came across this message, which is the message that I like to share, which is going back to the fundamental assumption that all of this seeking in the world and in the spiritual world was never looking into, was never actually exploring. And that's the assumption that what I actually am, the one that's doing all this stuff, is a separate self divided off from life. Moving through this outside world, making choices, making decisions, needing to get it right. So that's where I started to explore. I mean, we can do it right now, it's not difficult. I mean, you literally just say to yourself, right now, if I don't know anything, all the things I've learned about life and the way it is, if I go back to being very childlike, that kind of innocence, I don't know about the sophistication of life, then there's one thing I can say for sure, that I'm here, that I am. That can't be denied. Even if we don't know what it is that we are, we can say that we're here. We're alive. And then we can go just a little step further and say, well, what is this me that's here, that's alive? What can I say about it? Well, it seems to have a quality of knowing. And I don't mean intellectual, I don't mean, 1 + 1 = 2, knowing. I mean, knowing the sounds that we're now experiencing. The sound of breathing. knowing the sensations, those fizzy, tingling sensations of a body, knowing this image of a room. Anyone who's watching can try this right now. And knowing the screen upon which you're watching this right now. Knowing also whatever thoughts are reflecting upon what you're watching or hearing. Those thoughts are being known too. So what we're starting to see is that this, whatever it is that we are, is knowing the idea of myself, this image of legs, these intimate thoughts, these sensations, these feelings of excitement or nervousness or boredom, whatever they are, doesn't matter, is knowing all of that equally as the image of a room, the distant sounds of people in the hallway. All of that's known equally by whatever it is I am. And that's already quite a big step, because normally we imagine we are the thoughts, or we're the thoughts and the feelings maybe, or the thoughts, the feelings and the sensations. But that's all moving and changing, and it's just like the outside sounds. And it's all being experienced by what I truly am, this knowing. So already we're very quickly starting to see that the way we see life commonly actually doesn't match up to our simple experience. And we can go further and further. Where is this knowing? Most people say it's in the head. So we check it. Check the head. What do you find in the head? If you check behind your eyes right now, what is there? There's a kind of throbbing, tingling mass bundle of sensation. That's what I'm experiencing. You may be experiencing something similar. What do you experience behind your eyes?
Just blackness and some light shining.
Yeah. Any kind of sensation or?
Yeah, a little bit of a heat, like coming from the body up to the head.
Okay. So great. So the point is that you're experiencing something. So whatever this is, this knowing that we are, is experiencing that. So it can't be that exclusively, because it's experiencing that. I sometimes use the analogy of like a physical eye. Yeah. So if my eye is looking, everything it sees is not the eye, because the eye is seeing it. Yeah. So if you can experience something, that's not what's experiencing. It's before that. This knowing is before that. So what we discover is we can't actually find this knowing that we are. We can't find it anywhere. Just like the eye can't see itself. Even if you held up a mirror, you're seeing an image. So it's very interesting. We actually can't find this, we could call it an awareness, a knowing, a presence. You could call it a presence because it's present, it's here. Yeah. So that's already, whoa. If you've never heard this before, it's the first time you've ever heard it, that's quite something. But then we can go even further, because that's still, you ask me what's non-duality, that's still a duality. Because now we're like this awareness, we're not in a body anymore. The body is being experienced just like the world is being experienced. Yeah. But still it feels like this awareness is experiencing life. So there's still a kind of duality there. So this is like a kind of compressed version of a weekend retreat. So yeah, we can go even further, because if we take this experience now, like these flowers, very nice flowers, that Vesna, who organised this weekend, bought for us. If we look at those flowers, you know, the normal position is I'm over here looking at some flowers out there in the world out there. But actually, what our actual experience of those flowers is an image. It's like a perception. And if you touch them, now it's a sensation and a perception, creating the experience of flowers. And that's really important to see that, because what we're doing is we're kind of softening this hard external world out there. We're softening it down and bringing it much closer to seeing that it's made out of, all of this is made out of sensing, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting. That's what creates the experience. Yeah. And the big question is that this knowing that we are, that we can't find, that we can't deny, can we separate it from a sound, a sensation, a thought? Can you even find a thought in order to separate it from this that's knowing that thought? See, that extra step we're taking is we're starting to see that this world of perception that creates the experience is indivisible, inseparable from what's knowing that experience. So this is a sort of radical step.
How come we so strongly believe that this is all separated? It's just the attitude or the belief.
It's a great question. It seems that it's a belief we take on. It's in our culture. You know, in our language. Our language is based on the idea of a separate subject that acts upon a separate object. And there's nothing wrong with that. It can be a very useful interpretation. It's an interpretation of life. But we forget that we make up a language, we make up a number system, we make up this version of experience. And so it's like we live inside this conceptual idea of what life is. So we don't have to get rid of the concepts. Not at all, they're very, very useful. But what we're seeing is we're not this limited self incarcerated inside a world of concept. Actually, we are this presence that's experiencing and actually being, expressing as this world of experience. So this conceptual framework can still happily go about whatever it's doing. It's very useful. It created these technological inventions like cameras that enable us to film and watch what's happening right now. You don't need to get rid of anything. It's a subtle shift in perception when we realize that what we truly are is what's knowing and being this entire experience. So people that are watching this, you're not a limited separate self looking at a screen in an outside world. You are, your real body in a sense, is the entire experience, including the screen that you are watching, including the message that's being spoken. It's all what you truly are, all of it. But it seems that when we take on this belief, like you asked in your question, as soon as we imagine we're separate, it's like we're vulnerable, we're isolated. I'm now an isolated unit from life. I'm isolated from life. I'm alienated. And that feels vulnerable. So I start to protect myself. Especially if someone says something to me I don't like. I need to protect myself. So I start building up more and more energetic layers of protection. So I reinforce continually this sense of being isolated, continually reinforcing, reinforcing, reinforcing. And so it just seems that in the way we commonly live in this world right now, it seems to encourage that belief in separation. It's in the culture. But this message is also here, which is kind of inviting us to look at that belief afresh. And as you've seen over this weekend, that can be challenging, especially when we start to feel that sense of location starting to loosen. All sorts of fear and kind of resistance can start to come up because we feel like we're being threatened. So really, it can seem quite courageous at the beginning, because you're opening up to maybe feelings that you've commonly suppressed or denied or numbed yourself from experiencing. And it seems that some people, when they start to hear this message, they just sort of bounce off it. It's like it's too challenging in a way. You can bounce off it and find something maybe that's less challenging.
But basically, non-duality approach doesn't give you, like tools or you should do this. Basically, the opposite. It's not about doing. It's more about just observation and accepting. Or
yeah, in a way, it's more about being what you are rather than doing. But it's tricky, this, because there are different. Like anything, there are different kind of ways of presenting the non-duality message. Yeah. Some will be very direct and say, "There's no one here. There's no one sitting on a chair. There's just life happening." Which is very true. However, I know from my own experience, whilst that can be kind of mesmerizing, it can be wow, very exciting to hear initially, and maybe some people can have a real breakthrough with that kind of message. For many people, it doesn't provide that, and it can leave you feeling very frustrated. And in my own kind of journey, I discovered a way of, if you feel like you're separate, if you really believe you're a separate self, then there are things that you can do. There are tools, in a sense. Just like we've just been doing at the beginning of this interview, you can actually look at your experience and ask yourself, well, does it really match up to the way I imagine it to be? Does it really seem as if I'm a separate self? If I close my eyes, if I go into the experience of eyes closed, and if I see this projected image of a body that my mind puts into that, if I actually go into the sensations that I experience when my eyes are closed, do I actually find an edge to any of that? Can I find where a sensation of my left foot, can I find where that sensation ends and space or floor begins? Is there a definite end point? Just little things like that. We can start playing with our experience, like just being curious about it. And then when we find a resistance coming or a feeling that we commonly run away from, what if we just enjoy that feeling? Ooh, the discomfort of it. What if we unattach the label discomfort, unattach the label fear? What if we actually enter into it? It's like it's welcome into life. These are things that we can do, and what we start to discover is, no, I can't find an edge. No, when I'm really in these feelings, these sensations, I can't actually find where I begin and where I end. I start to feel this kind of unity, the end of disconnection. I start to feel very connected. And the I I'm talking about doesn't seem to be this anymore. it starts to be the entire experience. This is my body. And the extraordinary thing is then the way we act in life. I'm seeing myself, not this personal self, but here as I speak to you. And so there's just a feeling of love and connection, and rather than like a feeling of suspicion and, you know, ooh, you know, maybe what's he trying to get from me, or well, I need to be careful here. And you can see how it has an effect on your entire experience of being. And suddenly all these, you know, the tenets of Christianity and all the different religions, they're not things you have to practice. They're things that come for free. Love thy neighbour. I am my neighbour. Why would I not love my neighbour? I don't need to practice that. It becomes free. It comes for free.
Yeah, my question was regarding this, what you were speaking now, that let's say if I feel like bad, like contraction and separated, very like basic question, what can I do? What should I do? I want to get better, I want to get connected, I want to feel love. And so then we go to spirituality, we go to meditation, yoga class, tai chi class, whatever. So we want to get better, we want to get connected.
Yeah.
So what's to do in non-duality in this kind of...
Yeah, so that what you're saying is great, because there is this, I mean, it's incredible, no matter how much we take on, no matter how much we kind of shrink away from life, there's still this yearning. It's like a pull. It's like a gravitational pull that, you know, no, there's more. And it doesn't let us go. And if for some of us who may be more sensitive, I don't know, it's just life becomes impossible until you follow that kind of pull to explore this, whatever it is, what is it that I am. And so we go in to do all these different things that you've described, and maybe we find some kind of resolution there, some kind of benefit. But my experience is it's never enough. It doesn't matter if I still think I'm meditating, if I still think I am doing my yoga, then no matter how disciplined and no matter how committed I am to that, the fact that I still believe I'm a separate self, separated off from life, that longing will still be there, that longing to connect. So when people come and see me, you know, what I always tend to do is if you believe you're separate, just like we've been saying, we can start to explore that belief, just like we've been doing. I mean, there is a message that says there's nothing you can do, you know, contraction is fine, which is true. Ultimately, contraction is life happening. It's life being contraction. It's life being unhappiness. It's life being depression. That's all just what's happening, yes. However, this urge to look more deeply into that, this urge to come home, if you like, we can honor that rather than suppressing that and saying there's nothing to do. We can honor that yearning and start checking out what we believe to be true in a very simple, childlike way, our first-hand experience. And what I mean by that is that when we really look, most of us live our entire life on second-hand experience. It's things that we've taken, knowledge that we believe to be true, that we've taken from what we've been told, what we've been led to believe, rather than what we're directly experiencing.
Yeah, it looks like that we very often we escape from these feelings. Like we go to yoga because we want to feel good. We want to escape from the feeling, or we go to the meditation because we don't want to feel like this kind of feeling, and so
I see.
So we're escaping from these feelings.
Yeah, you see, that goes back to living life as a separate self. Because if I'm a separate self, if I feel uncomfortable, that's dangerous. Yeah, it's like we were talking about this yesterday in the retreat. But you know, if you're crossing the road and there's a sort of lorry charging towards you, then the body there's a discomfort in the body, and it's saying, get the hell out of the way, because you're going to die, you know? And it's very useful. So you get out of the way. It's like it's a fear reaction. And then we've appropriated that same mechanism psychologically. So when we feel discomfort, we psychologically now we say, oh, this is dangerous. We need to escape. We need to get rid of this. That's what the separate me, that's how it operates. So we look for a way to escape, and normally the escape is into thinking. So we start thinking, oh, how dare they do this to me? Oh, I need to reassert myself. I shouldn't take this from them. They always do this to me. It's like all that stuff. It's escaping the feeling. Or we could maybe people that drink or take drugs or whatever compulsive behavior to try and numb that dissatisfaction, that dis-ease. So again, this is the sort of courageousness, because what we really are, this awareness, doesn't need to escape discomfort. So actually, in a way, what we're doing is when we feel those uncomfortable feelings, we're actually going into them. We're not trying to run away from them. We're using them as an invitation to deepen into life, to come beyond the surface. So whether it's nervousness or embarrassment or shame or guilt, whatever it is, right there, that's energy, it's aliveness. Without the labels, that's life happening. And if we're not trying to escape it, we start to lose this solid boundary of a me separating me off from a world, and we start to feel, this entire experience is what I am, knowing and being this experience.
So as I understand it, there are we can say there are kind of two steps. That first we start to observe, let's say, some emotion or thoughts, and then we shift our identity to observer. And what can happen in many spiritual paths, that then you're identified with the observer, and you're stuck there.
Yeah, very observant.
So I think non-duality wants to transcend that, and also not to be stuck in observer, but to have one field of experience. So actually not to put yourself on one space.
That's it. So different people talk about it different ways. Some people, you've talked about a kind of sidestep there. Some people will go straight there. And we can do that too. But I've found that when you go straight there, that can cause a lot of confusion. It works for some people, but for others, that sidestep, into being like the classic witness, the observer of life, seeing that the thoughts and feelings that I took to be myself are witnessed just like the sounds in the room, just like the image of chairs and cameras and things. And you're right, some people then get stuck there, and they identify themselves as this kind of ethereal witness that's kind of experiencing life out there. But you see, that's still duality, and what you'll discover is that the longing will still be there. The feeling that this isn't enough, the feeling of lack will still be there. It doesn't go away. So, because it's incomplete, it's still a duality. You're still longing for connection. So that's why we then talk about that second step, which is back into life. It's like coming from this witness, this ethereal witness, and then coming right back into life. You're not only knowing the experience, but being the experience as well. That's the kind of what I would call, the name I would give that is true love, because it's kind of marrying together that knowing with the experience of living. It's the two coming together, not even intimate, but closer than intimate. It's just like one with each other. And that to me, it would be the only definition that makes sense of what you would call love. Not a love for one person for another, but just love. It's the homecoming.
I could continue with the thoughts and say, yes, you know, I have this again. I have this period when I feel this love, this non-separation, unity, and then I have a period when I go totally down, when nothing is clear, I feel separate. But as I can listen myself, I see that this is assumption that there is still I who is experience. So I'm not still not making this shift to see that I actually I'm not I.
I love what you're saying there, because often what seems to happen is we still see life from a kind of me-centric point of view. So it's me having these kind of openings into something much greater, if you like, more immense. And what we're doing in a way is we're turning that model around, we're turning it upside down, and we're seeing that the openings that you're having it's not like you're discovering something. All that's happening, it's like something's relaxing. Like the grasping of the framework of the way it is being let go of somehow. And all that's happening is you're seeing yourself as you truly are. And then the contraction comes back again out of habit and seems to pull it all back together into being a me in an outside world. So it's actually the opposite movement to what we think. When we have this an opening, we're actually realizing what we actually already are. So that habit carries on, that can carry on. But when you see what you are, it doesn't matter. It can do whatever it wants. The experience can be whatever it wants. It could be open and expansive, or it can be of a very focused looking at a flower bud. It doesn't matter. It's still you being that experience. There are lots of great analogies for this. The oldest is the ocean and the wave. So the ocean, we imagine we're the wave on the surface, but then we discover that actually with this kind of expansive ocean that's expressing as the wave. So when you think you're just the wave, there's a sort of terror in that, of disappearance, of the wave crashing, But then you see that the wave is the surface layer of the depth of the ocean, which never moves, never shakes. Even when there's a tempest raging on the surface, the ocean is still. So when we turn our life around like that, it doesn't really matter what the experience is anymore. Because we know ourselves to be that ocean, or the sky which clouds move through. Thought clouds, feeling clouds, experience clouds moving through, but none of them ever scratch the sky. The sky is always there. So that's why, in a sense, all we ever do in these meetings is one thing only. It's just coming back to what is it that I really am right now. And if that's not clear for us, then, well, what's knowing the sensations? Equally as the sound of air conditioning. Equally as this thought that might be thinking, what's this guy talking about? Or yeah, this is great. The content is not so relevant actually. It's just the fact that that content is being known by whatever it is that we are. Can we find it? Where is it? Can we separate it from the experience? These are the things we can play with. Oh, that feels uncomfortable. Oh, what if I feel the discomfort? What if I really go into that? Is it really dangerous? Is there really danger there? Do I disappear? Is there something really to fear? We're just sitting on a chair. There's no poisonous snake coming towards us, and there's no reason to fear. So even fear is welcome.
So you think that we tend to forget about all that when, let's say, we're not on satsang, we're not with similar people who would encourage us to look deeply, to have this kind of observation. What happens actually? We get back to the habit. We forget. We go back to the small eye, or
we've been playing the same habit for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, sometimes 60 years, 70 years. It's so ingrained. Believing the thought stream and buying into the contracted feeling. I mean, if you tense your legs, then somehow they kind of pop out of the experience more because there's a tension there. So if you're subtly tensing the physical body, it feels like it's more centered, more located. So there's all these things that we do, believing that we're separate, that reinforce that belief. So we can very easily find ourselves meeting life from this center of a me very quickly because of those habits. So in a way, it's like any habit that you're breaking. If you look into it and you see that it just isn't true, and we can do that in the ways that we've been doing. You can do it anytime you like, not as a disciplined practice, because then it gets dull and boring, and then it's another thing that I am doing. But out of the love of just tasting that, that love actually, that coming home. Then, I mean, in a sense, what I'm doing is encouraging people they don't need me. I don't have anything. And I've got nothing special whatsoever. I'm not in some special state or anything. I haven't got anything that you haven't got. So all I'm doing is encouraging you to see what you already are, and to see these habits that reassert themselves out, because it's like we just buy into it because it feels secure, it feels safe. Oh, I know what life is. Yes, I know. Suddenly I feel safe again. And as soon as the rug's pulled from under your feet, the truth is, I don't know anything. I don't know anything at all about life. That's the reality. And nobody does. I can know that I am, and I can know that whatever it is that I am has this quality of knowing, and I can't separate it from whatever's happening. Those things I can know because I can explore that in my own experience. But why this is happening, why it appears the way it appears, why the thought that comes that I'm separate and that whole game plays out, why the message comes that reveals that it's not true, and then there's a return to the home that we actually never left. Why any of that plays out, I have no idea. And neither do I need to know, because I am that whole play. We can come up with ideas like consciousness is expressing as a world of appearance in order to know itself, things like that. But you see, they're just ideas. They're more ideas. They're nice spiritual ideas. But the truth is, before we go into thoughts to kind of package life, who knows? Who cares?